fact, counsel, could you approach, please? I have this, let's see, I need to scratch this out. This document that discusses bond and gives the date of the preliminary hearing, and I guess I could sign that, and then he can just get a copy of it. And then the warrants are attached to that. Sign that. So, and I would like for him to sign it. Turn it over, please. I want to certainly acknowledge the presence of our district attorney, Mr. Brad Smith. He's assisted by his chief assistant, Patricia Brooks. Is there anything else, counsel, that the court needs to address that I have neglected to address?
No, Your Honor.
No, sir, not at this time.
All right. I do want to thank those who are in the gallery who have an interest and who have appeared. I appreciate the decorum that has been maintained throughout this proceeding, or both of these proceedings today.
Charles Palamas, the grandfather of 14-year-old school shooting suspect Colt Gray, has publicly condemned his former son-in-law, Colin Gray, for turning his grandson into a killer. The tragic incident unfolded at Apalachee High School in Georgia, where Colt allegedly used an AR-15-style rifle to kill 2 students and 2 teachers, while injuring 9 others. Colin Gray, Colt's father, is now facing charges of manslaughter, second-degree murder, and 8 counts of child cruelty for his alleged role in supplying the weapon and creating the toxic environment that contributed to Colt's actions. Palamas, 81, expressed deep anger towards Colin Gray, who he blames for creating an abusive and dysfunctional home environment that pushed Colt to commit the horrific crime. He needs the death penalty, Palamas told the New York Post, referring to his former son-in-law. He detailed how Colin's constant yelling and aggressive behavior over the years wore down the family, including his grandson. Palamas explained that Colt spent 11 years under the roof of a man who was constantly screaming and hollering, which he believes played a significant role in the boy's psychological breakdown. The shooting has devastated the small community in Winder, Georgia. Colt, who had been living with his father after his parents' separation in 2022, quietly left his algebra class just before 10 a.m. on the day of the shooting, only to return minutes later with the weapon. According to students, he attempted to enter his classroom but was unable to get inside, leading him to open fire in the neighboring classroom, where he killed 2 students, Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angulo, both 14, and teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Irami. One student, Bree Jones, recalled the terrifying moment when she saw Colt pulling out the gun. She hesitated before opening the door for him, a move that likely saved her life and those of her classmates. The aftermath of the shooting has revealed a deeply troubled family history. Colin Gray, 54, is believed to have given Colt access to the AR-15 style rifle used in the massacre, which investigators suspect may have been a Christmas gift. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, is examining claims that Colin knowingly allowed his son to use the weapon unsupervised, despite earlier denials to law enforcement when they visited the family months before. In May 2023, local police responded to an FBI tip about Colt's potential to commit a school shooting, but both father and son downplayed the severity of the threat at the time. Family members, including Colt's mother, Marcy Gray, had raised concerns about his behavior and mental health in the weeks leading up to the shooting. According to text messages obtained by the Washington Post, Marcy had warned the school about her son's deteriorating mental state. On the day of the shooting, she called the school at 9:50 a.m., 30 minutes before the attack began, urging them to check on her son, describing the situation as an extreme emergency. Marcy was driving toward the school, located more than 3 hours away, but the shooting had already taken place by the time she received the devastating news. Palamas described Colt as a once good kid who was overwhelmed by the toxic environment at home. He believes that Colt's exposure to violent content online, paired with his father's abusive tendencies, contributed to the boy's psychological decline. If you live with that kind of screaming for 11 years, you're not going to stay stable, Palamas said, adding that Colt had struggled with both suicidal and homicidal thoughts in the months before the tragedy. Marcy had tried to seek help for her son, but her efforts were unsuccessful. In one text message to a relative, she wrote that Colt had been begging for mental health help but was failed by the adults around him. Adding to the complexity of the situation, Marcy and Colin's relationship had been marred by conflict and legal troubles. The couple separated in 2022 after being evicted from their home. Colin, according to Palamas, spiraled into drug addiction following a back injury, which led to the family losing their $500,000 farm. Marcy, too, became entangled in the aftermath of Colin's addiction but remained committed to their 3 children, despite being legally restricted from having significant contact with Colt's father after pleading guilty to a family violence charge in December 2023. Palamas shared how his wife, Deborah, had visited the school the day before the shooting, attempting to address Colt's behavioral issues. The family had noticed signs that Colt was struggling, he was skipping school, his grades were slipping, and he had become increasingly withdrawn. But despite these red flags, little was done to intervene in Colt's mental health crisis. His grandfather lamented that Colt had been exposed to harmful influences both inside and outside the home. These kids today, they get on their tablets, and they watch all this violence. It affects them, Palamas said. He believes that this exposure, combined with the abusive home life, contributed to Colt's mental unraveling. In court, Colt is being tried as an adult and could face life in prison if convicted of the murders. His father, Colt Gray, faces not only charges of manslaughter and second-degree murder for his alleged role in enabling the shooting, but also multiple counts of child cruelty. Palamas is clear in his belief that both father and son must be held accountable. Colt pulled the triggers, and he killed those people, and that's something he'll have to live with, Palamas said. But he didn't wake up one day and decide to do it. He was driven to it by his father. Palamas expressed deep grief over his grandson's fate but maintained that justice must be served for the victims of the shooting. He admitted that it was painful to see his grandson face such severe consequences, but he felt it was necessary. "He's my grandson, and it breaks my damn heart," Palamas said, visibly torn between his love for Colt and the horror of what he had done. Ultimately, he believes both Colt and Colt Gray are paying for the toxic environment that was allowed to fester for years, with devastating consequences for their family and the community. "Vengeance is mine, say the Lord," Palamas said, citing the Bible as he reflected on the tragedy that had unfolded. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more updates on celebrity deaths and news updates.